Ghost stories are best listened to on winter nights, when the atmosphere is quiet, and depending on where you live, a cold, snowy night can amplify the haunting feelings we get when immersed in such stories. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 stories that will send chills down your spine. These tales tap into the unsettling feeling we all get when our minds can't quite make sense of what's happening, leaving you questioning what's real and what's not. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. The first story takes place in a college dorm after a roommate has moved out, yet there's still someone lurking around. This happened during my freshman year of college. I was living in one of the older dorm buildings on campus, and my roommate had transferred out a month into the semester, so I had the room all to myself. At first, it was great, but after a few days, I started to feel weird. It wasn't anything obvious, just little things at first. The air started feeling heavier. Posters would never stay on the walls, no matter how much tape I used, and strange sounds that I could never pinpoint. At night, I would hear soft creaking noises, like someone shifting their weight just outside my door. One night, I woke up to the sound of my desk chair moving, not like a little shuffle. No, this was like someone was dragging it across the floor. I sat up, groggy, and in the dim glow of the outside lights, I saw the chair was actually moving. It was slowly sliding away from the desk, inch by inch, as if someone was pulling it. I fully woke up then and reached for my phone to turn on the flashlight. The second the light hit the chair, it stopped. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I was just too freaked out. After that, things escalated a bit. My door would rattle at odd hours, even when it was locked. I'd wake up feeling like someone was standing over my bed, and this one time, I swore I heard someone breathing next to me in the dark. You know, like SpongeBob does when he's hyperventilating? Yeah, like that. But one night, at around 3 a.m., yeah, I know, it had to be 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of whispering. It was so quiet at first that I thought I was dreaming it, but as I laid there, I realized the whispering was coming from my closet. I couldn't make out the words. It was low, almost like a chant. Every instinct in me was screaming to get the hell out of there, but I was frozen. I don't know how long I laid there, just listening, but I finally reached for my phone to turn on the light, and before I could even turn it on, the door to my closet creaked open. I didn't stay to see what was inside. I got up and just ran out of the room and spent the rest of the night in the common area. The next morning when I went back, the closet was open, but nothing was there other than my clothes. But I did notice that the air felt different, like it was charged. I ended up switching dorms a few weeks later. I don't know what was in that room, but I do know that I wasn't alone. This next encounter highlights the ability our furry friends have to perceive things beyond our own sight, and reminds us that sometimes it's wise to listen to their instincts. I've always heard that dogs can sense things that we can't, but never really thought anything of it until my dog started acting weird around my best friend. Now, I don't know what to think. For context, I have a golden retriever named Milo. Milo is just your typical retriever, sweet, friendly, and just loves everybody he comes in contact with. He's never met a person he didn't like. Well, except for my friend. Me and my friend have been together since high school, and we still hang out pretty often. The first time I introduced him to Milo was after I rescued him and he came over to celebrate. I expected the usual happy dog greeting that I'd seen with everyone else. You know, the tail wagging, jumping and all that. But the second my friend walked in, Milo froze. He tucked his tail in as his body stiffened and his ears pinned back. Then, out of nowhere, he started a low growl that I've never heard from him before. I was confused, but laughed it off. My friend leaned down and extended his hand for Milo to sniff, and that's when Milo lunged at him, not in an aggressive, attacking way, but like he was trying to go between my friend and something else. He started barking like crazy, snapping at the air behind my friend, not at him. I had to grab his collar and pull him back because he wouldn't stop. After a few minutes, Milo calmed down but wouldn't stop staring behind my buddy. That wasn't the end of it either. Every time my friend would come over, the same thing happened. When we sat in the living room, Milo would sit at the far end and just stare. One night, when we made plans to watch a movie, Milo completely lost it. He bolted up, fur on end, and was growling at something in the dark corner of the room. Then he started whimpering, and that's what scared me the most. Milo never whimpers. My friend flipped on the lights and told me he needed to tell me something. That's when he admitted that ever since he was a kid, he's always felt like something followed him around. He always saw things out of the corner of his eye, like shadows that moved when they shouldn't, dark figures standing in doorways at night. He tried to ignore it, but lately the feeling has been getting stronger, and he thinks Milo maybe picked on it too. I got chills. I wanted to tell him he was being paranoid, but the way Milo was acting, I couldn't deny it. My buddy doesn't come around much anymore, not because we're not friends, but because whatever follows him, Milo won't let it in the house. And honestly, I don't think I want it here either. The final story tonight deals with visiting an old friend's home and experiencing a night to remember, yet not in a good way. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. Weird things happen, sure, but I've always chalked them up to coincidences or just tricks of the mind. That was until last summer, when I stayed at my friend's house for the weekend. Now, I don't know what to believe. We've been friends since college, but live in different states now. Last year, he invited me to visit for a long weekend, saying we could catch up, have some drinks, and just unwind. His place was an old 2-story house just outside of town, quiet, but nice in a rustic way. From the second I walked in, I felt off. I immediately got the feeling I was being stared at, that constant itchy awareness in the back of your neck, like I wasn't supposed to be there, but I brushed it off as just being in an unfamiliar place. That first night, we stayed up late playing games and having a few drinks. Around 1 a.m., I went into the guest room to sleep. It was a nice room, cozy. Well, as cozy as a man's decor can get. Out of habit since childhood, I left the door partially open and climbed into bed. I must have dozed off for maybe an hour when I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Now, I knew these weren't my friends. These were slow, deliberate, and way too light to be his. I laid there, listening. The footsteps stopped just outside my room, and I could feel someone standing there. I called my friend's name. No answer. I sat up, debating on whether to get up and check, and that's when the door, which I had left open just a little, creaked open the rest of the way, slowly. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, aiming it at the doorway. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the air in the room changed. It was somehow heavier, colder. It smelled faintly of something rotten, like old, damp wood. I tried to shake it off and laid back down, this time facing the door. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks, that maybe the house was just settling. Then, just as I started to drift off again, I heard a whisper right next to my ear. "You shouldn't be here." I swear to God I felt breath on my ear. I shot up and turned the flashlight back on and scrambled out of bed so fast I nearly tripped. The room was empty, but that gut-wrenching, nauseating feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my friend everything. He got real quiet, then let out a nervous chuckle and told me the house does that sometimes. I asked him what the hell he meant, and he just shrugged it off, saying he's heard weird noises before, seen doors move, but he tries to ignore it. It doesn't really bother me, he said. Well, yeah, it sure as hell bothered me. I left that evening instead of staying another night, and I haven't been back since. But sometimes, late at night, when my apartment is dead silent, I swear I can still hear that whisper.